Hey there. My name is Jason Wright, and I live with schizoaffective disorder. And I want to tell you a little bit about my life. So, I'm going to go live right now, and I'm just going to talk to you about how I am about living with a mental health issue. And hopefully, if you like this and it resonates with you, please like and subscribe and let me know that you're out there and you're listening. So, first off, let's start with me. You don't know me. I've tried many different ways for people to know me. I've tried through writing, through a lot of poetry, through all that kind of stuff. But I've never truly told a lot of my story of what it's actually like to live with schizoaffective disorder. I have told it before, but I've told it to peers. Now, I'll tell you what a peer is. A peer is someone with lived experience. So if you have lived experience, you might even know me, especially if you're in my peer support services, right? Or if you attended a workshop or something, or we talked, right? But a lot of the public doesn't know what this is, or what what it's like to live with schizoaffective disorder, what it's like to live with a mental health issue or whatever. So I want to talk to you about it. First off, um, it wasn't easy being diagnosed. It really wasn't. It was difficult. It started off with well, when I was 15 years old, I was diagnosed attention deficit disorder. And I don't know if you know what attention deficit disorder is, but that is um, when someone is not paying attention. Seems very honest of a disorder. I was 15 when I when I was diagnosed it, and I wasn't paying attention. So I figured that the medications would help, and they didn't. I changed immediately, um, and then it continued and persisted. Right, so I was now on medications, and then I was invited to go to college, right? You're supposed to go to college after high school. That was the point. Now, I didn't really do much. I was doing Oddball Magazine, which you're at the Oddball Foundation channel. So please like and subscribe because if you live with a mental health issue or you are passionate about the environment or you are passionate about social justice, I want to hear from you because that's what the Oddball Foundation is. We're literally a 501c3 mental health advocacy network. So, what's the best way to get mental health advocacy, right? It's to talk about it. So, a lot of people, they don't actually talk about it. They don't talk about it when you're actually going through it. They don't want to hear about it. They're either scared or they're bored or that person's just acting up or they're just trying to get attention or whatever. They're just crazy, right? This is the thing about stigma in America and in the world, right? I mean, let's just talk about in in the United States, right? There's plenty of stigma around mental health. People call it mental illness, right? So you put right there, you put that word illness into something, all of a sudden now it's a deficiency, it's deficit based. So you're given this mental illness, okay? And now we're it's older now, right? It's been around for a while. It's percolated, right? So a lot of people we they talk about it now, and they talk about it with softer language, but no one actually like wants to talk about it. No one actually wants to talk about it. So if you're listening and in the comments, please tell me what it's like living with a mental health issue for you if you do, or if you know someone who does. Because honestly, I will tell you my experience. I'm an open book. Not an open book. Honestly, no. I mean, I keep a lot of the stuff that I deal with inside. And, when I'm interviewing people on my podcast, I don't really often talk about everything that I experience. I might give you, but I don't talk about the goriness, right? You don't want to know the actual inner workings of my mind and how it works, right? I mean, No one want, I mean, maybe they do, and you hear that in writing and in people's readings and art and stuff like that. But we all talk about it on a surface level. And the thing is about mental health, and I'm saying mental health because there's mental illness and mental health, right? So mental illness is what they give you. Okay, honestly, you are given a mental illness if you fall under a DSM-5 definition of some sort of thing that you're experiencing. So they give you a mental illness. And then you live with a deficit based. When I say deficit based, I mean, it doesn't sound very good, right? A mental illness, it doesn't sound very good. And to live with it is often you don't talk about it. And if you talk about it, you talk about it in vague terms and usually talk about like, hey, my anxiety's acting up. I don't feel good today. I need to take care of myself, right? But you don't, but when people start saying stuff like I'm hearing voices, like it gets scary. Like they don't actually want to hear voices. They don't want to hear what, what's that like? What is it like to actually hear voices? It's it's not it can be debilitating at first. When it first hits you, it can be a lot, right? But it's just like every mental health issue that I experience and that I have experienced, it comes and it goes. That's for me. I mean, it's not constant. I don't know if you would talk to anybody. I can't talk for everyone, but I can talk for myself and say that my mental health issue is only about 50% of my life. The other part is about advocacy, organizing, reading books, being a family man, taking care of my dog and my wife and all this kind of stuff, you know, but and also organizing the Oddball Foundation, right? Which is and the podcast, because I like to have advocates on the show and I like to talk about their mental health experience, but I also like to talk about environmental activists and people who have different points of views and musicians and all sorts of people, poets and artists and advocates and everything, whatever. So that's the Oddball Show in a nutshell. So you can check that out. It's the Oddball Show. It's on Apple and everywhere else. But I've been doing it now for six seasons. And honestly, at some point you think that, hey, no one cares, right? No one knows. No one knows because oddball, you think of the word oddball, right? And people say, oh, that's funny. That's not a cool term, right? And it's not searchable or whatever. But here's the thing about oddball, right? I created it. It's something that I created 15 years ago. Well, when I was 15. And consequently, going back, that was when I was diagnosed. Let that sink in. So I was diagnosed when I was 15, and I had just began Oddball magazine, which was the response to a lot of things that were going on in my life as a kid. Right, I was a kid, so my parents were going through a divorce. I wasn't the most popular kid in the world. I tried out for the basketball team and I gave up on myself. All kind of stuff. So it perpetuated. I was pretty lonely. I was lonely, and I wrote a lot of poetry and I drew a lot, and that became Oddball magazine. Now, 25 years later, that sounds crazy. You still don't know me, and that's fine. But you might know oddballmagazine.com. And even if you do, that's great. I mean, but I don't know if everyone knows oddballmagazine.com. It's a poetry magazine. It's been online for 10 years now. Now, I know a lot of people wonder, why do I keep on persisting, right? Why do I persist? What's with the resilience, right? It's because you don't give up. When you are tasked with something like you have a mental health issue and it's just very difficult to deal with things, you don't give up, because what's the option? If you give up, you fail. In my opinion, it's not failing, it's just giving up. And I don't give up. So back to this idea of schizophrenia versus bipolar disorder versus attention deficit disorder. Now, I've currently been talking for 10 minutes, and I'm going to talk for another 10 more minutes. All right. So I'm going to talk about two things that I think are relevant to think about. One, don't be afraid to talk about your mental health. Don't be afraid to talk about your disorder, your diagnosis, or your illness. Let it know that it doesn't define you. That's one thing I want you to think. Two, it's okay to feel unwell sometimes. It doesn't raise red flags. It doesn't say, it's all over, life is ending. No. We're going to go, we as people are going through a lot with the COVID pandemic. So many things are going on that it's hard to even think of. Some people don't even want to go on, right? Now, task that with having a mental health, what they would call in a clinical environment or like a doctoral environment, they would call it severe mental illness. That sounds pretty scary. And a lot of these diagnoses that are given in the DSM-5, which is a diagnostic statistic manual or whatever. I never read it, but I know that it's a big phone book of what they want to call you and what they want to put you in and what box they want to put you in. And I often think that it's like a roadmap, right? It's good to kind of know, hey, look, I'm not alone. Like this, OCD, actually, there's a lot of things that make sense with OCD. There's a lot of things that make sense. What I experienced, this heightened nirvana or epiphany or whatever, was a mania. And when I was super sad after prolonged, whatever thing you dealt with, whatever prolonged problem you dealt with could be marked as depression. But it's just one thing to say, yes, all right, there's some truth in what the DSM-5 says. I'm not going to say there isn't. There is some truth in where the diagnosis is. But what I want to impart to you is that there's a mindset of a patient. And the mindset of a patient is, I have a diagnosis. I have to deal with it every day. And I'm going to talk to someone who's going to help me with it. I'm talk to a doctor who's going to prescribe me medications for it. I'm going to talk to this nutritionist who's going to help me with my weight, or whatever, or maybe it's not even that much. Maybe you're just, I have a mental illness and fuck everything else. I don't care about anything else. I just have a mental illness and that's it. It's kind of like, sometimes people want you to give up. They want you to fail. And I don't think that that's necessarily people. I think it's necessarily like in each of us, we have this fear that says like we can't do what we want to do with our lives. And when we have that fear, then all of a sudden, when you have that fear, now it can perpetuate and it can build and build and build. It becomes stronger. And that is kind of what can happen when you start hearing voices like, kill yourself and all that kind of stuff, or whatever, you're never going to make it. You're a loser, yada, yada. Those voices, when they come in, the way to stop them, I mean, like in therapy, they would say, if you're meditating, right, let the thoughts go by, let the thoughts go by. This is a thought, that's a thought. And that's definitely something that works. I think another way, I was talking to one person and he said, just tell the thought that it's a liar. It's not true. And I think that's a really good way of looking at things, because half of your mind is about deception, right? Half the stuff that we deal with is deceiving. Like, I don't know what you've experienced, and please let me know in the comments what you've experienced. I'd love to hear, what have you gone through and how can we talk about it? And then, there's, people who actually deal with this stuff on a regular basis and they don't talk about it, and it just perpetuates and gets worse and worse and worse. So there you have it. I spoke for 15 minutes. I want to let you know that I am a lifeline for you to talk to. The Oddball Foundation is a 501c3 for mental health advocacy. We work with community leaders. We work with other nonprofits. We work with advocacy organizations. We work with influencers and all sorts of people to get the word out about mental health. Okay. Um, and bust down the stigma of mental illness, because I think that's the most important thing. So if you like these kind of videos, let me know in the comments. I'll continue to update, as things go by. But honestly, I want to hear from you. What was it like with you? Were you diagnosed with a mental health issue? Were you diagnosed with a mental illness? And if so, when did you start to make that mental illness yours? Like, you owned it, right? When did you start to feel like you were in control of it? I want to hear from you in the comments below. Thanks for listening, and be well to you. Thanks for listening, and be well to all of you. This is Jason Wright of the Oddball Foundation and the host of the Oddball Show. And I'll be seeing you real soon.